Redanty?
Yes, Redanty.
I pronounce it okay?
Yes,
All right.
sure did.
Now, it's going to be pretty informal, just going to ask you a few questions and you're going to basically tell us your experiences. Do you have any questions?
No, I don't normally like to talk about the war because I'm lucky to be here, but I won't go into too many gory details.
Well, whatever you're comfortable
Yeah.
with. We want to save this for posterity. And,
the war is the way you look at the war is this: you wouldn't take $1 million for the experience, but you wouldn't do it again for $1 million.
You know what? That's almost an exact quote of the gentleman that just left, and that's a fairly common feeling. Now I'm just going to make a quick marking statement. We're interviewing Mr. Joseph Redanty at the Culver Road Armory in Rochester. It is November 20th, 2001. Michael Akey, interviewer. Wayne Clark, videographer. Sir, where were you born?
I was born in Italy.
Oh,
Born in Reggio Calabria in Italy.
okay.
Came here when I was 5 years old.
Okay. Came to Rochester.
Came to East Rochester.
East Rochester. And so you grew up in East Rochester?
Yes, I did.
Went to school there?
Went to school there and still there.
No, still there. When did you graduate from high school?
I graduated from high school in 1938.
Okay, well, so during the Depression.
Yes.
What was life like in Rochester at that point?
Depression.
Yeah.
Strictly depression. That's another, life experience. People that lived through the world's worst depression has quite an experience, especially for the mothers and fathers raising children. It's quite a job.
What was it like as a kid?
It was, as a kid, of course, you had fun with not spending any money. There's no money to spend, so you had fun with other kids with absolutely no money. You played street hockey and field baseball and football, and I don't remember basketball because there's no outdoor courts then. But you had good times. You had good times with each other. The thing that amazes me today with the children today, they have to pay for entertainment, where we entertained ourselves.
Right.
Really, it's true. I know my children, and they're average. People today have to be entertained, and you have to pay money. In our kid days, we entertained ourselves. There was no money for entertainment.
What did you do when you graduated from high school?
I started off as a caddy. I went at the Monroe Golf Club and ended up working in the pro shop and eventually became assistant pro. I went to Rochester Business College for 1.5 years and left that, and then I became assistant golf professional at Monroe Golf Club, and that's been my life since. I'm a retired golf professional.
Oh, very good. Now, where were you when Pearl Harbor broke out? Remember?
Pearl Harbor, I broke out when, where was I?
You were working?
No, I was,
Were you in the service?
yes, I was working.
Okay.
No, I went into service in 1942.
Okay.
I enlisted in 42. Pearl Harbor was when?
41.
41, so I was still working, see.
Okay. So you don't remember the you don't?
I remember the attack on Pearl Harbor, but not too much detail because I was involved with my job and at the golf course there, young. We didn't know war.
Right.
Who knew war in the United States before World War II? World War I was so far back. So there was no war. That wasn't the biggest thing that happened, except that it sunk in as the days went along.
Yeah.
And they started to call people, and you knew you had to go sooner or later. So when I finished my summer job at the Monroe Golf Club as an assistant golf professional, I enlisted.
Okay.
Because it's a matter of when do you go in and how do you go in.
You enlisted in the Army?
Enlisted in the Army.
Why'd you choose the Army?
I think it was because it was bland. I was not a sailor,
Okay.
you know, more than anything else. But they lied to us then. They said if you enlisted, you would your choice of service as well as what to do in that service. It wasn't true. You just got in line, whatever line you got in when you got into the service, you were inducted. That's the line you stayed the rest of the service years.
Where did you do your training?
And I got in at Fort Dix, Camp Campbell, Kentucky. No, Fort Smith, Arkansas,
Okay.
first, and we maneuvered in Camp Campbell, Kentucky, Nashville.
What was that like?
What, maneuvers?
Yeah.
Maneuvers in Tennessee? It was tough because it was, you know, in the hills, we were troubled with snakes and ticks, and cold weather was in the winter. Living in tents. It was quite an experience, quite a good experience for going overseas.
Was this your first time away from home, going into service?
Yes. Well, no, I was in Pittsburgh, from East Rochester to
Okay.
Pittsburgh as a kid, but
Okay.
away from home per se, yes.
Okay. So you acclimated yourself pretty well to it?
You had to.
Yeah, you didn't have a choice.
You didn't have a choice. You had to. You learned as you went. I'm a firm believer today that is the youth of today should have 1 or 2 years of service experience. You learn so many things, you know, when you get into service.
Now, you go through your maneuvers, and that was Tennessee? And are you assigned to a unit at that point?
No, we were assigned the unit right after that,
Okay,
14th Armored Division.
okay.
And we went from there to Camp Campbell, Kentucky, assembled. New York, overseas.
What was your specialty?
I was with the 14th Armored Division, 94th Reconnaissance Battalion. I ended up in headquarters company because I could type.
Oh,
Not, the fact that I took up typing in high school because my handwriting was terrible. So I could type, and I went in there, and then from just being in there, I went to more or less as a adjutant to the commander because they brought in other typists, fast typists, and so on. But I got in there because I could type.
okay, so you're with a headquarters company.
Headquarters company.
Okay, and
Throughout.
your general duties were?
Well, actually, for the commander of the battalion, I was like his aide, go for more or less, and traveled with him, around him,
Okay.
and so on. I was not at a desk.
Okay. When did you, where did you go when you went overseas?
We were headed for Anzio Beachhead, and in the middle of the Mediterranean, the boat took a U-turn. No, not a U-turn, a full turn. And we could see it turning. We didn't know what was happening because we were headed for Italy. And then we did learn because we turned around and landed in Marseille, France.
Oh, so this was
Because Anzio Beachhead had already been secured, and so the boat with us was one of those Liberty ships, like a cork on a bathtub,
what was life aboard like on the Liberty ship?
It was tight, a lot of us. I think the boat held something like 800 or 900, and there was 1,200 on the Liberty ship, so it was tight.
Food okay?
Food was very good. It didn't bother me, but it did bother some of the soldiers. And they're up at on deck, throwing up all over the place. So eventually it got to you, because everybody was throwing up all around. But knock on wood, then and now I survive it pretty good. Food is good, food is good. Fantastic Thanksgiving dinner, I remember that, because there was so much that you could eat, because maybe at least 30% of the soldiers were sick,
Yeah.
so they didn't eat. So you had turkey and everything, all you wanted. It was quite a feast.
So you arrived in Marseille.
Yep.
What did the unit do when it arrived?
Well, we stayed in Marseille for about 3 weeks with some combat training, more or less, getting acquainted with the country and the facilities and overseas, and then we went right up the Rhone Valley, right up Rhone Valley, all the way up to where we hooked up with the Third Army, and we crossed into Germany and fought our way across Germany north of Bavaria.
Now, what was the general mission of your unit?
Reconnaissance,
Reconnaissance.
For the 14th Armored.
Okay, what kind of equipment were you using?
We had small tanks, real small tanks.
Stuarts?
Huh?
Stuarts?
Yes, Stuarts. Small tanks, and we traveled light because we were reconnaissance, always ahead of the heavy artillery. And of course, you sent back signals to the artillery, the heavy units. That was our unit.
What was it? What was the experience like being out front?
Scary. You prayed a lot. Anybody that come out of the service who was in the front lines that claimed they didn't pray, they lied. Everybody prayed, because it's scary. Shells falling all around you. And
What was your biggest concern?
biggest concern, safety. Watching the enemy. And then when we got into Germany, snipers. France wasn't bad. There was no sniping in France. France was, actually, I don't know if I should say this, but my impression of France was dirty. It was dirty, really quite dirty. But we got into Germany, they were much cleaner. But it was much more dangerous in Germany because of the Germans. We were attacking we were in their country.
Now, what was your
destroying their country.
What was your commanding officer? Who was he?
Lieutenant General French.
Okay. All right. Now, who was the battalion commander you were with? You were an aide, right? And that was to a battalion commander?
McAfee.
McAfee. What was he like?
He was strictly Army. He was an Army, a regular Army guy. So he was tough. He was strictly Army. There were two types of people in the Army. The people that were enlisted for the duration, and then there were regular Army people. Well, the regular Army people were sophisticated. They were the big guns. They were regular Army. You're just a visitor.
Did McAfee treat you well?
Pretty good. Pretty good. But strictly to the code. He was all regular Army were code people.
Now, going through France wasn't too bad.
No, going through France, fighting was not too bad at all. Not bad at all. It was winter and it was muddy, and you really got acclimated. You go from the United States, you're on a ship, and then all of a sudden you land in France and you're in the mud area and front lines and going through a war. You got acclimated real quick, like going up the Rhone Valley in France and going across.
Now, on the move, what were your general duties?
We were doing the same thing we were taught to do. We were participating in advanced reconnaissance work. And we did that all the way up the Rhone Valley. And it was more or less of a practice because there was not much fighting in France, if you remember. There was very little fighting in France. But the minute we got over the border of France to Germany, then it was strictly, you were 7 to 10 miles ahead of the heavy artillery that you send signals back to. Tanks, artillery, long johns.
Now, your job is the adjutant.
following him around throughout the various, see, the 94th Battalion was made of companies, A, B, C, and D companies. So we travel through the companies and take reports. He would inspect them, answer questions, tell them where they are, how much they should know, how much they shouldn't know, because each company had a first lieutenant that was in charge, and then a staff sergeant, and then a sergeant, and so on. So it was, I was with him, and most of the time, more or less, by his side. And then when we got into Germany, we separated a little bit, and I got into the company work because we were in the heat of the battle, more or less. Yeah.
So you're assigned to the 3rd Army. What was your impression of Patton?
Oh, he was a hero. Impression of him, he was a hero. Are you kidding? He was a hero. We admired him because you read about him. I never did see him. We admired him because you read and hear the things that he did, and he was quite an individual. The word is that when he finally got across the Rhine River, he got on a bridge and urinated in the river, and that's evidently a true story, things like that. Made him a real cowboy type of a general, respected highly, gutsy guy.
Well, I guess he liked spick and span, like uniforms,
Oh yeah.
neat.
Regular Army. Yeah.
Where did you cross into Germany? Do you remember?
No.
No.
No, because there was no big city. All of a sudden we're into Germany.
Okay.
There was no city per se.
Then the complexion of the war changed?
Yes,
Okay.
very much so. We went from more or less rehearsal into battle. And the battle was in Germany.
Can you remember your first engagement?
Our first engagement was really shocking and very devastating. The Air Corps did a pretty good job in most of the towns. And we went through this small town called Darmstadt. And I'm riding in this Jeep, and it's this very small village-like type of thing. And I'm driving through, and I turn around in the Jeep and I look back and saw nothing but rubble. There was nothing standing in the way of homes or buildings. And I thought, my God, they're going to have to take and get another location and start Darmstadt all over again because there's nothing left of it. So when you saw that, if you weren't frightened before that, you're frightened because of what you're going to be, what you see and what you're going to be seeing. It was quite an experience seeing that, and then from then on, it's all you saw.
What was your experience first time under fire?
Scary. Under fire is hearing and almost feeling the sound of weapons. And I'm not talking about the shot, I'm talking about the whistle of weapons. And that was scary because we were the reconnaissance the way up. We had, look behind us all the time and sideways and so on. Some pretty tough experiences there, really, really tough experiences.
Any amusing times?
Amusing times? Yes, there was some amusing times, believe it or not, even in Germany. I don't know what I can say on camera here, but I will say it. You talk about amusing times. We were very close to the front lines. You could hear and I hear the whistle, I hear the guns go off and so on. So we were in front. So it was in the evening, it's more or less dark, and you're going from, not foxhole to foxhole, but trees and houses and shelter and protection. And all of a sudden, I tripped over a fellow soldier. He was on the ground. I thought he was hurt. And I went, "What are you doing?" He says, "Get out of here." And I realized he was having sex with a German girl. My God, what are you doing? I said, get out of here, get you, get out, go away, go away. That's amusing, if you want to call it amusing.
Yeah. What were you concerned about the most when you're in a combat situation?
You're concerned about the artillery coming your way,
Okay.
because you could just hear the whistle and then bang.
Mm-hmm.
You see, you wouldn't hear it when it went off. You'd hear the whistle and then bang, because it's coming from quite a ways out. That was the biggest fear, is the artillery coming at you, because you couldn't hear it until you heard the whistle,
Mm-hmm.
and then it was there.
Mm-hmm.
Bang.
Were mines a big concern?
No,
No.
no, we didn't have any problems with landmines, not at all.
So-
I'm talking about, we were just a little north of Bavaria. There was heavier fighting north of us,
Okay.
Luxembourg and through there.
Right.
Our fighting was not nearly as heavy, and I don't think Bavaria is in South Germany,
Mm-hmm.
and it wasn't the heavy fighting that was up there. So mines, no mines.
Mm-hmm. Snipers were a problem.
Snipers were a terrible problem, very much so.
Any way? Is there any way that you developed to deal with them, or just?
No, you didn't deal with snipers. We're talking about snipers now, people that were not in the service.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh, civilians.
civilians, of course.
Oh.
Yeah, because the soldiers were in the front lines. You're worried about the civilians that are sniping at you.
Oh.
Oh, sure. They're invading their land, their women, their way of life.
Mhm.
Who are they going to blame?
Mhm.
Except the soldiers that are there.
Do you get involved in taking many German prisoners?
We took prisoners, yeah.
How is that generally handled? How are they treated?
The Germans? Well, we didn't have it. We took them and sent them back.
Okay.
Yeah, we didn't do much with them. We took them and we ran into youth, real youth.
Really?
At that time now it was getting near the end of the war per se, because when we got into Germany, we started to take prisoners of war. They were young. They're young kids. These young
Mhm.
kids
Mhm.
carrying weapons, and scared to death.
Hmm.
They were more frightened than we were.
We're usually billeted in buildings.
Wherever they told us to billet. In Germany, we billeted in buildings that we took.
Okay.
But the people that were in the building, we let stay in the building.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. We did not put them on the street, no.
How did that generally work out?
Well, they'd take a certain section of the building or house or whatever, and we'd take the other, separate from them. And of course, you ran into some experiences in that situation too,
Such as?
Well, you're under tense situations, like I say, snipers, and then even the people you're living with, you didn't know
Right.
if you were safe. They have round-the-clock guarding. And so we got into some German wine in this one particular building, in the house that we were in. And one of the sergeants got a little carried away on wine, and the people that the Germans that we were staying with, there was a girl in there about 19 years old, and he got getting get fresh with her, and he took her, and I heard him taking her outside against her will, and his name was Ackerman, and I says, Eddie, what are you doing? It's all right, the hell, what do you think we're doing here? And he was all, number one, wind up, nerved up, no sex and who knows how long, stuff like that. But anyway, to make a long story short, I'm proud of this. I was able to save the girl from being raped. I got to Ackerman, and he let her go.
Well, he could have been shot for that.
Oh, yeah, but who's going to turn him in? He's going to be shot by the German people easily.
Mm-hmm.
Again, like I say, snipers and so on. You couldn't take their food, they'd have to eat it first, and so on, yeah.
So you dealt with German civilians fairly frequently.
Oh, sure we did, all the way through, and then after the war ended, we were waiting for the boats to go to Japan, and the war ended, and we still were waiting for the boats to go home, so, we were there for a good 6, 7 months. So we lived with them. Very scary.
Really?
Well, sure, again, snipers, stuff,
Even after?
after the war, more so after the war. Sure. Angry.
Okay.
Well, we ruined their country.
Was there a non-fraternization policy at that point?
Absolutely.
Did that work?
Somewhat, but if you could cheat, you'd do it and so on. It got, we got a little more familiar with the German people because we gave them things,
Right.
soap, chocolate. They didn't have food of anything, sea rations. They just, the example is, this is after the war ended, one of the fellows went out and shot a deer. What are we going to do with it? The people we're billeted with, of course, they're separate from where we are, but in the same house. Said, we'll cook it for you. So it was a small deer, it was a doe. And they cooked it. And of course, they had to eat it first. But it was the most delicious meat we've ever had. Really, they did such a job. Another cute story that I'll tell you along the way now, this is. Now, it'd been probably 5, 6, well, maybe a year since we had fresh eggs. It was all powdered eggs, So we got into this town, I was in this house, and down the cellar, one of the guys found what they call an hourglass, which was an egg preservator, some kind of solution with fresh eggs, preserve them. So, oh my God, they brought it up, and there are probably 5, 6 dozen eggs in there. So we started to cook eggs, and this one kid ate 10 eggs.
Now, were you assigned to this McGaffey for most of your tour?
Yes, right to the end.
Right to the end?
Yeah.
But once you were in Germany, now, when you went between the companies, were you basically passing information?
Telling them where they were, where the battalion was, where the army was, how far back they were, where the location was. That was strictly what the commander was doing.
Okay.
And passing back information from the companies, whatever they'd gather. And I mean, when you went to the companies, it wasn't like a street walk, like a Sunday walk. You creeped around to where they were, because again, you're reconnaissance, you're at the front lines.
I understand from some recon guys, often they had no idea where they were.
No.
Just moving so fast, and that must have been a little unnerving.
Sure it was unnerving. As I say, I'm lucky I'm here. In one instance, I was scheduled to go back and get some gasoline with 2 trucks, and I was going to go with the Jeep to guide them back to get some gasoline. And the last minute, the commander says, no, he says, I want you to do this. Let so-and-so take the Jeep, and they'll go. Well, they were ambushed, and about half of them were killed. And I could have been right there, see. So you don't like to talk about those things because it's a close call, but it did happen, so you're lucky. You're real lucky, see.
So you feel you're pretty lucky during...
Oh, no, lucky. Half of them didn't make it.
Really?
They were ambushed. Now, mind you, we're in the front lines, and they were going back for gasoline, and this happened in between. They were ambushed in between. So that the Germans were like what's going on right now in Afghanistan. They would hide in places, and they were just playing. They had 2 machine guns, and they just ripped them apart, and half of them were gone. But that was the wars. And you say, what was your worry? You're scared, you know. I don't think that-
What was your general opinion of the German soldier?
German soldiers, mean.
Really?
Very, very mean. Arrogant. Very arrogant. They're high ego people. Cold. After the war, the reason that the American soldiers did so well with the German women was because the German soldier, or the German men, were cold-blooded people, evidently. Well, the women, you know, the GIs went in there and they romanced the girls, told them how beautiful they were and so on. They romanced them. So they made out with all kinds of women after the war.
Right.
With always with an eye behind you, even with.
What was your equipment like? Your sidearms?
Yeah, sidearms,
Okay.
M1 rifles.
Pretty good equipment?
Yeah, updated, yeah, the latest that there was.
Okay.
The M1 was the best rifle at the time you had, the P38 sidearm.
Now you usually traveled in a Jeep?
Yes.
Okay. How was that armed?
We had a small machine gun in the back of it.
30 cal?
Yeah.
Mounted?
Mounted.
Okay. Were there usually 2 or 3 guys to a Jeep?
3.
3.
Two in front and the machine guy.
Okay. So there's a driver.
Driver, passenger, or, sort of a shotgun. And then the
Machine gun.
machine gunner.
What was your general duty in the Jeep?
As a shotgun.
Okay, and that person generally was running the operation?
No, the driver was running that.
Driver was up,
Oh,
right.
yeah.
And was he usually a sergeant?
Yes,
Okay.
master sergeant.
Master sergeant. And you were a sergeant at that
I
point?
was a sergeant at that point.
Okay. About how many engagements were you in? Or because of the nature of what you were doing,
Countless, what's an engagement? When you see some small flyer, major, semi-major?
Now, as a reconnaissance unit, your general mission was to find the enemy?
Mm-hmm.
And then what did you do once you found him?
Radio back.
Okay,
You radio back to the artillery,
okay.
the Air Corps, what do they call those planes, the spy planes, the small planes, L5s or Ls?
Right. Spotting planes.
Yeah.
Right.
Would communicate between them
Right.
and the artillery and tanks behind us, 8-10 miles, like I say, 7, 8, 9 miles back.
Usually when you ran into the enemy, were you to engage them or
No.
just, no?
No.
No. Just radio back?
Only for protect, for defend yourself. As a matter of fact, we're definitely not supposed to let them know that we're there.
Okay,
So we didn't engage unless we had to. Of course, once they spotted you, you had to fire back. But that was not our position to fight.
right.
Just what it says, reconnaissance.
You run into German armor much?
No,
No.
they were the same thing. They were back further.
Okay,
We heard it, but we didn't see too much of it.
okay.
See, we did most of our travel at night.
Oh, really?
Oh, sure. Because like I said, there were no mines, so we had to be careful and quiet. But during the day, you'd study the maps on where the companies would be going, and the commander would take them. The battalion commander would assign each company to go this way, go that way, and so on, so that in the evening we'd make those, and then take positions for daylight, so you can really see what was going on.
Oh,
But you found your position at night,
okay.
and then you would be able to send the spotting back to the artillery, tanks. planes.
What was it like operating at night? Was it-
Somewhat very scary because you didn't travel on the highways. You know, it's the worst place to be. So, you know, you have to be careful about getting lost and getting away from your battalion. And that was the worst thing. But they kept in touch with the radio, and the radios worked great. They worked great.
Well, was there a radio for each vehicle, or?
There was just about a radio for each vehicle, yeah. Had to be.
Okay.
Had to be, yeah. No, there was a radio for each vehicle.
So navigating at night was kind of tricky.
It was definitely tricky. That's reconnaissance.
Get lost very often?
You got lost, but with radio contact, you know, you'd find your way, and most of the time there was loss. There was some loss of personnel because they got lost, you know. Ran into ambushing.
Now, the Jeep that you were in, did you work together for most of the campaigns? Were you with these same two guys in the Jeep, or?
Yeah, they stayed together, yeah. The same Jeep, yeah. We went all through Germany. The war ended we were in Passau, Austria, and I was still with the same Jeep, yeah.
What were the other two guys like?
Were they like? Well, you got along because you have to look out for each other. They're real excellent.
Do you have any close friends in the unit?
Everybody was a close friend.
How were...
The one kid was from New York City, and Bentley his name was, and of course, he'd never been out of New York City. So a New Yorker doesn't know anything about the world except New York. As a matter of fact, he'd never seen a real cow.
Really?
That's right. Never seen a real cow. Bentley his name was. So it was entertaining because he was strictly a New Yorker, period.
How were replacements treated? Guys coming into the unit?
We welcomed them. They were welcome. We didn't get too many, but when we got them in, they were very welcomed, and of course they were scared to death. You know, the war was in when we got replacements until after the war. They knew that we were in the heat of the battle, and so they were frightened. So they depended on our direction very heavily.
You didn't have a high turnover of personnel in the unit?
No,
No.
fortunately.
Good. Okay. We need a moment to change tapes.
Of course.
So, did you get into any of the concentration camps?
We saw some of the atrocities after the war.
After the war.
Yeah.
After the war.
Terrible memory. Terrible. Saw one concentration camp after the war. Terrible.
What was your impression?
Cattle. People live like cattle. Filth. Terrible. You don't believe that human beings were in these barracks type of thing.
Did, in that you lived with German civilians for a while, were they aware of what was going on in terms of the concentration camps?
No, they didn't. See, the average German person didn't want the war. They wanted any part of it.
Yeah.
And that's what was difficult. You're invading some innocent people that didn't want you there, didn't know what you're doing there, because the war was really with Hitler and his army. Well, the farmers were not the army,
Yeah.
and that's what made it difficult. The German people were bitter because they didn't want this. They didn't want any part of the war.
What was your general impression of the German people?
Well, they're easygoing people, you know, normally easygoing people. They were arrogant, even as farmers. They were arrogant. And, well, you know, they were Hitler had them believing that they were the world.
Yeah.
You know, that's why they went to war, because of him thinking that Germany was the world.
Do you think that your training back in the States was good training for what you encountered?
Not bad.
Not bad.
Not the best, because it's a different ball game.
Right.
You know, maneuvers are trial and error type of thing. There was no trial and error in the front lines. They learned a lot from that war.
What did you learn?
I learned to stay out of the war, that we should not be in wars overseas. Now we're looking for war here. I learned that, let them live their lives, as long as they don't bother us. Let it be. Never going to happen. Never going to happen.
Now, when the war was over, you stayed in Germany for how long?
About 8-9 months, occupational force.
What was the general duty of the occupational forces?
Actually, nothing. You kept peace. You still had your weapons, and we were waiting to go home. I was there in the 4 years to go home. Or first, we waited to go to Japan, and the war ended, and now we're waiting for the boats to take us home. So I really was not there that much as an occupational force, because we'd already been in 4 years. They were bringing in all the new occupational people, so I didn't have too much experience. 9 months. It was during the summer. Small, very small. I think it's in this town here. Is this Garzin? Yeah, Garzon Inn. It's a small town, actually a little bigger than East Rochester, a little twice the size of Canandaigua. So it was easy going. But you still had to be on guard. You had to be on guard.
Really?
Yeah, oh, sure. Yeah.
Were the German soldiers coming back?
No, I didn't experience that. We were around then.
Okay.
I was strictly the civilians at that time.
Okay.
You see, you invaded their peaceful life.
Now,
There was quite a bit of sniping.
Really?
Oh,
Even after the war?
Oh, yeah. Oh, hell yes. It was where we were, anyway.
Did you catch many of the snipers?
No.
No.
No, it was mostly at night.
Now, the town was what? Small farming?
Small farm, small town, about 18 miles north of Munich, which was the big city. So it's just a small town living. And Bavaria is mountainous and farm and so on. I had the experience of going to Obersalzberg,
What was that like?
which is the crow's nest of the mountain
Okay.
in Bavaria that Hitler built. And it's amazing, because this man built an elevator right in the heart of the mountain, stone all the way up. We had to walk it, and it's about 1.5 miles up there. It was a tough walk. But when you got up there, you see this layout, about as big as this whole building here, Obersalzberg they called it. And you could see that this man felt that he was on top of the world, because there was clouds beneath us. And you could see as far as the eye could see. And if this guy had put his mind to the benefit of humanity, rather than what he did, they would have had a leading country. You should see what he did there in this mountain. Amazing. And up there where the officers met him, we had his meetings and so on. It was beautiful. It's so high up, and the elevator is still going, the tourists still go up and see it.
Did you experience any problems being Italian in the Army?
No. No. Or with blacks. None.
Okay.
I'm talking about overseas now.
Overseas. What about stateside?
Stateside, there was, well, really not too much because there was no time. You were training, you know you were going to go over. And in our outfit, there was absolutely no animosity toward religion, nationality, or color. None at all. Mind you now, you're in the front lines with a guy that's looking out for you, and you're looking out for him. So, you know, bullshit on what color he is or nationality he is, never entered the picture at all. Absolutely not at all. Again, front lines now. I don't know about the States or after the war, before the war. No experience with it.
Now, they were in the point system, weren't they? To get out, you had to have so many points, or you weren't?
It didn't bother me because I was in for 4 years, so
Okay.
my points were not
Okay,
not a matter. Just a matter of getting the boats okay.
okay.
Those Liberty ships were not a joyride, you know.
Oh, you took a Liberty ship back too?
Back to, sure.
Oh. And where were you discharged?
Fort Dix.
Fort Dix? So you came right back, well, once once your time was up, you just shipped back to Dix?
Shipped right back to Dix, yeah.
No parade?
No. No.
So you
Glad to get out.
You're discharged at Dix, and then would you come directly home? What did you do when you get home?
Got back into the golf business.
Right away?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, immediately.
Okay.
It was my profession.
And
My livelihood.
that, you stayed professional golfer till you retired?
Say that again?
You stayed a professional
Yes,
golfer till
yes,
you retired?
Yes.
And
I played golf in France right after the war. They had a ET Open in Paris at the Saint Cloud Country Club.
Tell us about that.
So it was after the war, and they, while we're still there as, what did I say was, when you're there?
Occupation.
With occupation. They started whole events to entertain us. And so, if you were a golfer, they knew I was a golfer and so on. So I qualified and took a Jeep up to Paris from Munich and played in the ETO Open at the Saint Cloud Country Club in Paris. And that was quite a treat.
Really?
Yeah.
They treat you pretty well?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
How'd you do?
Just fair, you know. And didn't hit a golf ball for 4 years. So you didn't get 3 days for practice either.
Oh, okay, okay. Do you remember who won that tournament?
Yeah. Mangrum, Lloyd Mangrum. Lloyd Mangrum, with a little mustache, short guy.
Okay, was he,
He beat in a playoff, he beat a guy from Pittsburgh.
they were both Army?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, wait a minute. Lloyd Mangrum was not Army.
Oh,
No. He was in the Air Force.
okay.
Yeah, he was in the Air Force. As a matter of fact, he was a gunner in the Air Force, a little guy. I don't know what the other fellow was from Pittsburgh, but Ray Mangrum was telling us about his brother Lloyd. Lloyd Mangrum was telling us about his brother Ray, who's back in the States and could play in tournaments, and he didn't. He could have made a lot of money, and his brother was up fighting in the war, and was really teed off at him. He says, he got a lazy brother, he won't play in tournaments, he could win them all. And so he was a professional golfer, Ray Mangrum, and he won that tournament in the playoff. Nice experience, yeah.
What was the course like?
Not bad, it wasn't hurt. See, France wasn't hurt. The center of France, as far as we could see, was not hit by the war. Just the beachhead, you know, the landing up north. But Paris wasn't hit at all, you know.
So that was quite a nice experience,
Yes.
the golf
Yeah.
tournament.
Yeah.
Did you get to do, was that the only time you were able to golf while you were in?
Only time you ever golf. We saw a couple of golf courses that were murdered by the Air Corps. Murdered by the Air Corps. had another very pleasant experience. I was born in Italy, in Reggio Calabria, which is on the toe of Italy. And so we'd changed commanders by this time. Now it was this Commander Farish, and and I told him, I said, you know, we're waiting for the boats. I'd like to go down to where I was born. And he said, well, I don't know, you know, they're sort of worried about sniping and so on. And but I talked them into it, and me and Chester, he gave me Chester Pierce, and I got a Jeep, loaded it with gasoline, food, and some ammunition. And we took off from Munich, drove all the way down to the Brenner Pass, and ended right there.
Really?
The Air Force murdered Brenner Pass.
Oh.
Couldn't get by. Had to go back home.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
So you never got to Italy at that point?
No. Well, Brenner Pass, you know, they just destroyed it. The Air Guard destroyed it.
Right, right. Now, what's your general impression of your military experience? Or was it what you said
Well,
earlier?
just what I said earlier. I wouldn't do it again for $1 million. I wouldn't take $1 million for it, really. Especially frontline. You know, I didn't have much military experience.
Sure.
You know, I enlisted and went to Camp Fort Smith, Arkansas, up to Camp Campbell, overseas. So my 4 years, I would say I've had probably less than a year of service experience per se.
Right.
But they wanted us to stay on and stay on as and enlist as regular Army. We didn't do it.
You didn't do that?
No, I
Didn't go in the reserves?
A lot of them did. A lot of them did. Some of them did.
Did you take advantage of the GI Bill at all?
No. I was offered it.
But you went right back to the Gulf? So the job was waiting for you?
Yeah, well, sure. You know, it's still, golf was starved as much as any other industry during the war, so there wasn't the competition in golf professionals then that there is now. So I went right back into Monroe Golf Club, and I went and got my own job at Leroy Country Club in Leroy, New York. Stayed there 24 years, and then opened up another course in a small town up here in Macedon for 5 years, then I retired.
So golf's been pretty good to you?
Golf was very good to me, yeah.
Well, very good. Well, thank you very much, sir. We appreciate the interview.
My little field there.
Okay, hold it up, or just like that, I can zoom in on it.
Now tell us what this is.
I'm being awarded the bronze medal from General Smith.
Wow, why did you win the Bronze Star?
Active duty, front lines.
It's very nice.
Yes, quite an honor.
You still have it, I hope.
Oh, sure.
Good.